One of the hardest things on my healing journey to learn was boundaries. As someone that grew up in a home that did not have boundaries or did not teach them, when I became an adult, I had no idea what boundaries were or how to respect them or how to set them. Boundaries to me felt threatening. They felt as if I was being rejected or there was something wrong with me. And so I spent a lot of my time trying to figure out how do I fix these relationships around me and be who they need me to be without losing them. But what I didn't understand was that I was actually going against exactly what I needed to discover within myself. To learn that it is okay to say no. It is okay to say stop. And it is okay to walk away when things are not for you and your highest good. Now, when you've grown up in trauma, that's not something that's easy to come by. It is a way of being able to survive your life, to know that you're not alone, especially if you grew up with any kind of abandonment. And when I talk about abandonment, it doesn't mean that you were left completely alone. It means that at some point in your life, you didn't feel seen, you didn't feel heard. Maybe you had to shrink yourself, or you had to be really good as a child to not get in trouble. And I know that was my case. I had all of my physical needs met. I even had things beyond what other kids did and other teens did physically. I got a car for my 16th birthday. I had the best clothes. I had pretty much anything I physically wanted. But when it came to emotional needs, I did not get that. And in between not having my emotional needs met, I also wasn't heard. I wasn't heard when I would tell people that I'm struggling or something was happening to me in my home that was abusive. And because I did not get a chance to share my voice as a child, when I became an adult, I had no idea how to use it. I had no idea how to stand in my power. And learning how to do that was one of the most difficult things on my healing journey. Not only because I was afraid I was going to make everybody mad, but because my physical body would react. I would become so tense and almost like panicky in my energy because I was so worried. What is this person going to think? I'm going to be a bad person. They're going to think I'm horrible. In my whole life, I have been spent trying to be a good person. So, how can I be a good person and still say no or walk away from something that is not aligned for me? So, when I started really diving into this for myself, this was several years ago. And I will say, probably in 2020 is when I finally got it. I started healing around 2014. And when I stepped into my spiritual awakening in 2016, things began to transform for me very quickly. When I began to understand, I could hear spirits, talk to spirits, and understand spirits, I began to share that with those around me. Now, I was rejected. I was told that I was evil, that I was listening to demons, that everything about what I was doing was bad and I was leading people astray. I even had some random people from my past I hadn't talked to in probably 20 years reach out to me and start sending me negative messages and putting me down and telling me I was wrong. Now, I get it. I probably would have done the same thing if I were in their shoes. I don't have any judgment against anyone. I know everybody is living their path the way they believe should be lived. And I have no right to tell them, you're right, or I'm wrong, or you're wrong and I'm right. It is simply the fact that we are all just trying to figure out this human experience together. And our paths don't always align. So when I started really stepping into my purpose and calling, I had to be okay with people being mad at me. I had to be okay with saying no to things. I began to set boundaries with people around me that I had never set boundaries with. And they struggled because the identity that they knew me in, the person they knew me as, was this people pleaser, this really nice person, this person that did anything for them. I would drop all my needs for other people. And we hear that a lot at people's funerals. They would have given the shirt off their back. Now, that's not a bad thing. I would do that to people even now. But I also have the boundary of understanding that I have the choice of whether I need to get to or not. I don't have to do that to be a good person. And I don't have to do that to be a nice human. I get to choose what is right for me and how that looks. But when you grow up in any kind of environment where you didn't get to choose you, choosing you becomes one of the hardest things you've ever done. And so you have to sit with yourself. You have to allow yourself to feel safe enough to understand that at some point you stop rejecting and abandoning yourself. And in order to not abandon yourself, you might have to leave behind things or relationships that cause you to abandon yourself. And one of the things I learned on this journey in when I really started stepping into this was I lost everybody in my life. There were probably 2 to 3 years in my life I didn't have a friend. I didn't talk to my family. I didn't have any deep connections around me where I could lean on. I was forced to go inward. I was forced to meditate daily. I was forced to see myself in a new way. I was forced to get healing, to find a healer that would help me. And because of that, I found the strength within myself to begin to stand in my own power. And then I started to really understand the teachings of Jesus in a new way as well. And yeah, I'm going to bring that in because Jesus and I are homeboys now since my accident. If you didn't know, I had an accident July 18th where I basically feel like I had a near-death experience. I was unconscious in my human mind for over 8 hours. I had no memory, had no ability to think. And those around me that were with me say they compared me to 51st Dates. I had no idea I was even talking, but I had a memory span of about 2 minutes. And I would forget everything. I would speak the exact same question over and over every 2 minutes and not even have an idea I had just asked that and received the exact same answer. And so these people that are in my life right now are so kind and generous and patient with me. And I really feel like they saved my life in some ways. But when that accident happened, it completely shifted my reality and the way I show up in this world. And if you knew me before the accident, I was channeling the wisdom keepers. And since the accident, suddenly Jesus is hanging out with me more. So the messages I bring through right now are going to be aligned with what I'm receiving. I'm not going to try to force myself to share something that is not true or accurate or isn't authentic. I don't have a desire to build a platform being false or pretending to be anything I'm not. And in that, I wouldn't be able to do this had I not done the healing work in the past where I understood I'm not here to be what everybody wants me to be. I'm here to be who I am meant to be so I can share that with the world and I can help them be who they're meant to be. Because being your most authentic self is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. There is an actual teaching in the Bible, and it is in one that, well, I'm sure all the Gospels have this, but I will specifically talk about Matthew 10:4. So if you want to look this up, if you want to question me, that's totally fine. But there's a message that says, whoever shall not receive your message or hear your words, depart from that house and shake off the dust from your feet. So basically, what this is Jesus saying to us, if you go somewhere and you're sharing your truth and you're being authentic and people don't respect that and they don't hear you or they don't allow you to share who you are in the most authentic way. Now, if you're going to manipulate and you're going to harm, that's a whole nother story. But when you show up authentically, when you show up in love, when you know that you are being true to yourself and people cannot receive that, you dust your feet off and you move on. And each time you choose yourself, you come back into alignment with your soul and you begin to stop self-abandoning. You begin to learn who you really are. And that's how you change your reality. If you want to manifest new in your life, you have to know who you are deeply and what you actually want to create and manifest in your reality. Without knowing yourself, you can't create a new reality. So, the whole purpose of meditation isn't necessarily to have a spiritual experience. It's about connecting with yourself. And being on a healing journey, that's one of the most important things that you need to do is connect with self. But when you do begin to step into your power and you stop shrinking yourself to make other people feel comfortable, there is probably going to be people that don't understand it. You might have criticism come your way. You might have people that say there's something wrong or who did you become? What happened to you? I get it. That's been happening to me and it hurts and it's sad. But what I've learned in this is that I had been self-abandoning myself my whole life. I was shrinking myself to make everyone else in my life feel better. And instead of shrinking myself, I decided to stand up and be myself. And in that, I had to teach my nervous system that it was okay and that I was safe. And that just because somebody felt uncomfortable with me choosing me didn't make it wrong. Now, healing and setting boundaries and stepping into your power does not give you permission to be mean, hateful, or revengeful. That is not the purpose of healing and being authentic. I am still kind to the people that I don't agree with or I don't get along with. I still love them deeply, and I would still speak with them with kindness if I were to see them in person. But these are not places or people I choose to seek out anymore. And one of the things that, if you are growing in this way and maybe putting yourself out there, you may learn is that there's going to be strangers that you've never met in your whole life that are going to support you more on your journey than those that you have known your whole life. And this is another teaching that Jesus gave us. Jesus wasn't able to do his ministry in his hometown. They rejected his message. They believed that he was a false teacher. And what's interesting about this and what I have discovered is because they knew his humanity, they knew him outside of the Jesus figure that he became when he stepped into ministry. So when you step into a new version of yourself, it likely will cause people that have known you your whole life to feel triggered and be like, what happened to them? Who do they think they are? Why all of a sudden they have all this power and authority? Well, those who take the path of healing and alignment and allow themselves to trust themselves more, not in an egotistic way, but uncovering that version of themselves that got hidden underneath the pain that they had growing up or who they were taught to be, or the programming or the beliefs that hid their power or kept them hidden in the background or people pleasing. When all that starts to come off, you find who you are. And you are a divine being of light. You are the I am frequency. You are worthy. And I say this to my clients all the time. You don't deserve to have a good life. Deserving requires you having to be something that the world standards give to you. Deserving is not what we're working towards. We're working towards the alignment of understanding we're worth. We're worthy without needing to deserve the worthiness. And when you come back into that reality that you already have everything within you, you just need to go within and discover it, then all the things that didn't align with your most authentic version that you had been shrinking yourself for become exposed. And you have a choice in that moment. Do I keep moving forward and choosing to be authentic? Or do I shrink myself and stay in a pattern that hasn't served me? Not very many people choose to take the path of healing, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment. Healing's not easy. It's really hard. And I tell that to my clients all the time. I don't expect you to change tomorrow, and I don't even expect you to want to change. There's still love for you. You still are going to go back to source energy when you end this human life. But living authentically sure does help this life feel a little bit better. And it doesn't mean you don't have struggles or hardships. It just means in the middle of those, you have peace because you know that you always have yourself. And then when you're aligned with yourself, you start to attract things that match that energy. If you're looking for support in any kind of way, I do have a few openings for healing and mentorship, and I do try to keep my prices lower um, than maybe some other healers, just so I can help more. But I do know it's still expensive. But I have offerings that are readings or one-on-one mentorship that's either biweekly or weekly. And I look for people that actually want to do the work, and that's what I am here to help serve in. But also know that if you are not in a place where you can get a healer or work with somebody, that there are people out there that are cheering for you and loving you as you walk this journey and understand exactly what it feels like to try to shed all of those limiting beliefs and step back into your power. I hope this is helpful in some way. And I hope that you remember how loved you are. I send you all the universal love. Namaste.